Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask Ben W., the video series where I get to tackle exactly one question as I walk from my parked car to my office in Denver Public Schools. Today's question is courtesy of a couple of conversations that I've been having recently, which we are talking about just how many different folks are engaged in providing and sort of leading professional learning for teachers and leaders in DPS. And the question goes like this: when is it important to have duplication of efforts? Now, for the most part, we try and eliminate duplication of efforts. We try and find synergies, or we try and find efficiencies. And there are times where that feels super appropriate because essentially there is no reason to remake something that has already been made, a resource or a methodology or a framework. But there are also times where it is not only beneficial, but maybe even important to duplicate the efforts for a different scope of participants. So if you're talking about working with special education teachers versus working with ELA S, so Spanish language elementary teachers, right? Like, those are two different folks, and they may need different things, and they may need different methods for both professional learning, or they may need different frameworks to understand their work. And sometimes it actually makes more sense to have the folks that are supporting those teachers, or have those teachers themselves, actually duplicate efforts. And I keep on thinking about the fact that there are so many teachers who create their own lessons, right? There are so many different teachers who create their own resources. And there is an argument out there that says, well, if we all just shared them, no one would have to create anything new. And there are times where I think that that's valuable. Yes, we should all share our lessons and our ideas. Absolutely, that's what we should be doing. But I think the second part of that statement is not accurate. We should be creating more things. We should be creating and, concocting new lessons for those students that are in front of us. We should be adapting the work of others to suit our own needs. We should not simply be asking one another for the best resource that exists and using that off the shelf, and not thinking for ourselves about how we could make it better, or the work that still needs to be done. And I think the last thing that I think requires us to duplicate efforts is that when we duplicate efforts, each of the people doing the duplication, or their own unique body of work, each of those folks is learning something. The process of creating that resource or that lesson or that framework, every single person that is doing that is learning in that process. It doesn't work to have everyone simply use the same thing because they don't learn anything from that. It is the application of maybe that same thing, and the adaptation and the remixing of those resources, of those frameworks, of those lessons, that actually brings about learning and brings about change and brings about buy-in, like all of the good things. And so I want to be really careful for how we talk about whether or not we need to find efficiencies, or we need to find and eliminate duplication of efforts. Because sometimes that inefficiency and redundancy brings about change in a way that efficiency and synergy does not. So I guess that's my answer. If you would like to ask me a question, please do so with the hashtag AskBenW, and I'd love to answer it in video form. I hope that you are having a great learning day, and I hope to see you again soon.